Improvement Services Committee to order. Let it be recorded. Steuer, Johnson, Nicholson. Were you present? Need approval of the agenda.
So moved. Wait a minute, we're gonna move.
Move to amend to move item number 4 to the first spot.
Okay, motion by Johnson, move
Second.
number 4 to first, second by Weary, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Sawyer, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Regular business. Number 4, consideration of possible action, request by Nicholson to address surface water drainage issues 1661, 1663 Elkey, and to approve the city to reimburse Kroll $3,000 of the cost to install the private storm sewer referred from staff September 17th Common Council. Okay, what I would like to do is that make some type of, let's get something on the floor so we can get this to city council, and then basically we're gonna discuss it there. Those are my wishes. Pardon?
Do you wanna
Do you wanna talk?
Yeah. Motion open the
Okay,
floor.
motion to open the floor for
Second.
interested parties, second by
Second.
Steuer. Under discussion here, none, all in favor, nays, or motion carried. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Jeremy Kroll, 2744 Glendale Avenue, 606-772 Sonoma Avenue. Well, you know, we've been dealing with this for a while now. I'm still actually going through with the process of getting occupancy permit. And with how long everything's been taking, I finally had reached out to my lawyer, and he suggested that I just, because I was approved on everything for my occupancy, is moving my renters in and then forcing the city to come up with a plan to take action.
Okay, what do you want us to do then?
I think
Just receive and place on
if
file
we can
then?
if we can go to council and get it resolved there one more time, I mean, I'm up for that. I'm all for making it work, you know, getting it
Well, that's what
resolved.
I'm trying to do.
I don't want to have a lawyer. I really don't. That's why I've been here for, you know, however many months now, and I keep getting the runaround at the inspection department. Now I've gotten the full, complete, you know, occupancy, and they're like, no, well, you're gonna have to call this guy, call erosion control. Okay? I call erosion control. Have I gotten a call back? No, none. You know, so now I'm sitting here hanging, like, now to the point where it's like, you know, what do? I, you know, keep throwing money out the window here. I mean, I'm in the process of losing a lot of money. A lot. Not just a little. And, you know, I'm not a super rich person. I don't, you know, this was me doing this all for money saved throughout my whole life to enter into this project. And I feel like I've gotten no help. I've called the city, the inspectors are disrespectful. They offer no help at all, which I find quite appalling, really, because it's like, I thought we were supposed to be working here together, you know, to get this done. But it seems to me that nobody's willing to offer help or do anything to get this resolved.
Okay, well, what I'd like to see is just move forward with something and get it to the council. Alderman Steuer?
I was just gonna ask if inspectors are here right now, if there's a way that they could chime in on this, you know, what the situation with this, or not?
I'm here, but I don't.
But you're
I
not
have
here
the
for something
electrician
else.
or
All
The
right.
other ones that were doing the inspection.
Okay.
Well, they're not here.
Well, I mean, I would appreciate, you know, the side from the city, you know, to find out what is going on with this, you know, because it seems like it's gone back and forth, Public Works, inspection, he said, she said, you know, it's frustrating for all of us. So we just need to get some clarification. So if we have to speak about it at council, I'm
Right.
fine with that.
Alderman Steuer, where he has some type
Did we
of...
open the floor?
Oh.
Do we need to close it?
Oh,
No.
any
Oh,
more
I'm sorry.
questions?
I am sorry.
No,
No,
I'm ahead of myself.
Fine.
Any other questions?
No.
right, motion to close the floor.
Second.
Close the floor by Worry, second by Johnson. There's motion here, none. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays was carried. Alderman Worry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to send this to council for the city to partner with Jeremy Kroll to install the storm sewer at a 50/50 cost share.
Okay, motion by Worry. Is there a second?
Hold on a second.
But one of the things that was requested was to have the law department here, and Assistant City Attorney Mathler is here.
Okay.
Oh, okay, well,
Well, that's why.
I didn't know who that person was.
That's me.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
For discussion.
Right, okay, second by Stoyer.
If
All right.
I could, Mr. Chairman, if I
Oh,
could.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
my motion is not to reimburse in any way. We're not looking at any kind of claims committee and like that. We're partnering with them. We're partnering with them to build this storm sewer. So it's not any type of looking for reimbursement or a claim of any kind. It's on this particular project due to the circumstances. We're going to partner on this project.
Okay. Hey, your name again?
I'm Lindsay Mather, Assistant City Attorney.
Okay.
I don't think I've had the
I never
pleasure of
met you.
meeting either of you
How long you
yet.
been with the city?
Just since the end of May, so
Okay.
relatively recently.
All right, welcome aboard.
Hello.
So I'm not sure exactly how what you're proposing would change this analysis. Vanessa asked me to look into some more of what she had spoken about at council, just about if the city's going to spend money, it has to be for a public purpose. And I don't think, well, it has to be a direct benefit to the public and not just to a private individual. So even if the city would go 50/50, the council has to determine whether there's a valid public purpose that's a direct benefit to the public in general and not just to Mr. Kroll. So you'd also have to identify where the money would be coming from. But if any benefit to the public is just incidental or indirect, and the primary purpose of the expenditure is still to benefit a private party, that doesn't satisfy the public purpose requirement, and so that would be a problem. I have like more specifics on what kinds of, like what the factors are for public purpose, if you're interested. I don't know how in depth you'd like me to go. Thoughts?
Well, I think one question I have, Chair, could I,
Unknown caller.
does that mean yes?
Go ahead, Sawyer.
Thank you. I guess the question I had, granted, it sounds like it would be for an individual, person or corporation, whatever, that this would be happening. I'm just wondering, because of the way the drainage was, or the way things were set up beforehand, if that you could look at, that this would be a benefit for the area in general. I mean, Alder Weary, were you looking at just that specific spot? My thought is that if it went further, LK's right on the city line. I'm just wondering, the whole thing that we're talking about, drainage, so to speak, that's where I have a little problem with that. So I was just wondering if it was just for that particular property that you're looking at, and if that would be cause to possibly look at, could it help a bigger area, for the public good?
Well, I think there's no drainage on the street, correct? So,
Well, the drainage used to use the right-of-way of LK, or of Irene, and it drained down to the radius returns on LK. When the property owner started developing the property, he then blocked that drainage path, causing the ponding, which is why the private drainage system was required.
Okay.
And so that's kind of another element.
Mark, do you still have any questions?
No, she, you
Sorry, I
can
was just
answer, well,
answering the other part of your
Steve kind of
question.
answered that, but if,
Okay.
go ahead, you can finish your statement.
No, just if there's an issue with flooding or inadequate drainage or something like that, in theory, that could be a public purpose, but you have to consider if it's, there's an element here of, because it was not a problem until somebody started building on the property, then it's something that was caused by a private individual, and then we would have to expend public funds to rectify the issue.
Is the determination of the public purpose up to the discretion of the committee and ultimately council?
Yes.
And so
Um,
right now, we are ponding on a street. I don't know, I like the motion, let's let council figure it out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Motion carried. Recommendation to city council, 6 o'clock, this coming Tuesday, correct? Same room we were at. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have to leave the meeting. All right.
Is Galvin sitting there?
He can if he wants to, we got a quarter.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
All right,
if he wants to.
he doesn't have nice enough shoes to sit up here.
That's true.
All right, item number 1, consideration of possible action request by Alder Burnett on amending the city's ordinance on landscaping, weeds, vegetation, in gardens on residential lots held from September 11, 2019 Improvement Services Committee. Alder Burnett has requested that we hold this until the next meeting, so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Storer, second by Weir. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 2, consideration of possible action request by Alder Galvin that the Department of Public Works develop better systems to better and more quickly respond during disasters, and staff will present a summary of lessons learned from the March 2019 floods. Per to staff from September 11, 2019 Improvement and Services Committee meeting. Alder Galvin.
Thank you. My request is more to do with more recent events. We had 2 large storms with a lot of wind damage, power outage, trees down. I became concerned when I found major intersections in the city unmanned by any police officers with no traffic control. And the police were stretched so thin they had no one to put there. We ended up with a rollover accident at Decker in Maine. There were some injuries involved. I called the PD, how come you don't have anyone there? You don't have anyone to put there? How come you don't have the portable stop signs up? How come we don't have barricades at roads that are blocked with trees or power lines down? We don't have the staff, the manpower, no fire department. So I had a discussion with Commander Warwick. They tried to do better the next time, and then we had the tornado, again, the same thing. This time I was a little more insistent with the police department, and part of the reply to me was there was a lot of flooding on the near west side. DPW was responding to that, and so the PD, after waiting 3 hours, had to go get the barricades themselves and go set them up. We've got really good departments. PD, fire, public works, parks, they all do a real good job, but I think sometimes we get into too much of a silo type attitude. I remember when I was on the police department, we had issues with wanting to get barricades up and turn into kind of a union issue. But I think as a city, as a community, we can do better to serve the citizens, to get their streets open, to keep things safe for them. And I think if the departments were to practice or work together better, I think we can come up with a better plan. You can't always anticipate what that particular plan is. I mean, they did a great job with snow removal. They know a snowstorm's coming, they start converting trucks, they start getting salt loaded up, they get things distributed, they're ready to go. We had that flood in March. It wasn't the best response ever. We could have done better, they're working on doing better. Then we start having more flooding. Well, by the time we have more flooding, now they've got barricades and stuff pre-positioned. They know where the problem areas are, they're trying to get there. So, I mean, we're making progress, but I think we can do better. And so I'm asking staff in the different departments to work together to come up with some plans that are going to make it safer, faster for the citizens of Green Bay.
So you just want this referred back to?
Yes, please.
Okay. Alder Storer, your question?
Well, Bill, in your experience, I mean, you have worked with the various departments on some of this. Do you feel that we don't really have anything in place at this time as far as an overall comprehensive type response?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if we've had that before or not. Nothing like
Well,
this.
the fire department does a lot of work, you know, and that all results from 911, which was a man-made disaster. And they do a lot of tabletop exercises. And I know that we do one about once a year, but I think we could do some training like that. I think, because you can't anticipate everything. So I think if we had just some kind of structure, that if something like this happens where there's a power outage and we need streets blocked off, or we need portable stop signs, or we have flooding, or or say we do have a man-made disaster, that the different departments know how to work with each other very well, and we can share services. There's no reason that equipment from parks can't be used by DPW in extreme emergencies if need be. Fire and police are learning how to work together in certain situations. So I want to take that a step further and make that kind of a push for all our departments to work together and trying to develop some policies and procedures.
Doesn't the fire department, I can't think of what it's called right now, but they have that program, with the various communities?
Emergency management?
Well,
Mavis,
what's that?
the Mavis alarms.
Yes,
Yes.
that's it, the Mavis. So, I mean, there's something out there that the fire department uses already. I don't know if that's,
Absolutely. I mean,
You know?
the wheel's probably been invented
Yeah.
already. We just
Right.
need to look around and see what other communities are doing or other departments, and then see what we're capable of doing, how much better can we be, I guess.
okay. That's all I have for now, but.
So then, you have a question?
Yeah, well, thanks, Alderman Galvin. Did you want to work with staff on this?
I don't mind if they want that. Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. I'll meet with them. I mean, the sooner we get this thing going, because who knows, next week, next month, another 2 feet of snow coming. I mean, God forbid, but,
Sweet. No.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain this year too,
right.
so it's unusual, but yeah, I think a lot of us are very interested in this as well, so thank you for that.
All right.
And I've experienced, I guess, a few things in my district as well where just maybe a quicker response could have really kept a lot of citizens happy.
Exactly, and I think they're kind of getting used to this water thing now, but what's the next thing that's going to come out of
Yeah.
that? And so, I know that we can do better. We're good, I just think we can do better.
And I think to your point, I mean, nobody's intentionally,
No.
delaying or it's just maybe a proactive approach. So
Right.
with that, I would entertain a motion to refer this to staff for further work with Alder Galvin.
All right, thank
I'll
you.
second.
Well, I guess I would have one question for Alder Galvin. With the refer to staff, do you want to refer to staff and have that come back to committee, or do you want to refer to staff to develop and implement? Do you want it to come back to the committee or not?
I don't know, whatever you guys think is the best. I mean, I guess
Your
it
motion.
depends upon, I think it would depend upon what we
I know.
come up with
Okay.
for a working idea. We may need committee approval, depending upon what we come up with.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have clear
I
direction.
guess we can see as it evolves and then
Okay.
make a decision from there.
Alder LaFave?
I think what I mentioned before, that flood in '73 that I went through, a lot of you, staff wasn't around then and ever remembered, but the city did a really good job at that time. I mean, they were having news articles, letting everybody, the paper, what you should do, because they knew that the flood was coming, that this big storm was coming, and they gave us more than enough advance, and where you get your sandbags, and then they had the National Guard was helping getting people out of their houses. And, the city really responded at that time. Of course, they had advance notice, but this is something, that's what I was really concerned when I heard all the things that was happening. And, things kind of fall off, as you go on, I guess. And so, yes, something definitely needs to be done.
All right, so to Director Grenier, look back at the policies from 1973. We're good.
See what happened?
All right, we have a motion by Alder Steuer to refer to
Second.
staff, second by Alder Weary. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 3, consideration with possible action request by Alder LaFave that the gate at the east side yardway site is left open during the winter, and report the hours of operation, the procedure for closing the gate at the site, referred to staff from September 11th, 2019 Improvement and Services Committee meeting. Alder LaFave.
Yeah, I thought it was Parks, and then I found out that it was DPW that controls the gate and that. And, I've had a lot of neighbors saying that the gates, even they're not being closed, gates just being left open. That might be one thing too, helping a little bit with the deer. I know they can jump fences and that, but it kind of would help a little bit with the deer herd.
So you want to trap them in the yardway site,
Yeah.
My understanding is-
or you don't let them in?
Big cover.
is that dawn to dusk and it's opened and closed by the DMT.
Right, that's our standard daily schedule. Our building maintenance technicians, custodians, whatever you want to call them. During the summer months, up until basically our first snowstorm, the gates are open from sunup till sundown. Now, they might not be open until right at sunup, and they might not be closed right at sundown, but every day, that's standard procedure. So I'm not sure when residents are seeing if it's a little after dark and they're still seeing them open, we probably just haven't been there yet. But they are locked up every night.
In the winter, was it just weekends?
In the winter, they're only open on Saturdays.
Saturdays only.
Saturdays, but
Yeah,
they
Saturday
said during the
daylight.
week they were open. They found them open.
Okay.
So I just want, maybe
we
you
can-
weren't aware of it or something, and just bring it up.
Well, we can definitely make that a point of emphasis with the building maintenance technicians and follow up with that
Okay.
to make sure that the hours are being properly
Okay.
adhered to.
Sounds like something
Non-lethal
easily
way
solved with
maybe of
staff.
helping.
Yeah.
And doesn't really need to be on the agenda, so motion.
Notifying us, and we'll follow up with the building
Okay.
maintenance technicians to make sure that that work
Yeah.
is being done.
All right.
We have a motion received and placed on file by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Weary. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 5, consideration of possible action on request by Alder Steuer to study and report out on the feasibility of utilizing the even-odd residential address overnight parking scenario as is done in Milwaukee in order to relieve the parking problems at residences with limited parking spaces, referred to staff from the August 14th, 2019 Improvement Services Committee meeting. Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is just, that's some information I got too as well. Just,
That's a whole stack?
that's a whole
Is it?
stack.
Okay.
One for you.
Staples, Mark,
Staples, I didn't have any. I apologize. Do you have any? All right, well, I brought this up a few weeks back. A citizen in my district had a situation where single stall garage, they have 4 people in the house, there was room for 2 cars, the other 2 cars were on the street. So I grew up in Milwaukee, and they had an even odd alternate parking scenario where cars, if it was October 2nd, that evening, you would park the car on the odd side of the street because the next day would be an odd day in terms of dates. I've done some research myself. I know Director Grenier gave us some information too. I haven't had a chance to really look at it yet. But last night, I have one sheet here, committee, that you can take a look at. It was this one here. That one. And I looked at 17 different cities in the state of Wisconsin, most of them the larger cities. The communities that had allowed alternate side parking were Wausau, Superior, Racine, Milwaukee, Middleton, Madison, La Crosse, Kenosha, Eau Claire, and Burlington. The no's, they do not allow it, would be Green Bay, Appleton, Manitowoc, Neenah, Oshkosh, Sheboygan, Stevens Point. It was about a 10-7 yes to no. So, like I said, there's arguments to be made on both sides of this issue. I thought, I know we've talked about this at the city in the past. For whatever reason, it didn't go through for any number of reasons. My take on this too would be that the parking would be allowed during, not during snow emergencies. That would be definitely a no. So I think every community that I read about had different exceptions. I gave each of the alders a packet as well for each of the various cities, so it's great reading. They're all different. They all have different rules and regulations and such, and they have different factors being in that city. So basically, the city of Milwaukee last year raised $4.5 million in revenues from permits that were allowed for this. They were $55 a piece. The city of Milwaukee is about 6 times larger in terms of population than Green Bay. So prorated, if we did that, if we had permits, it would be about $800,000 that would be raised. A city normally, we pay taxes, we provide services. There aren't a whole lot of areas for revenue raising, and I think this would be another possibility for revenue raising, and it also could help take care of an issue. I know that Sometimes the police might be against this. I know Director Grenier will give his statement shortly as well. I'm answering the request of some citizens who have difficulty finding alternative parking. And, you know, if you could have it on one side of the street, you could do your street maintenance on one side of the street, the next day on the other side. So that's my initial kick at it. I'm in favor of looking at something like this, and I've got information from other communities as well, and I'm sure Director Grenier does as well. So for now, that's all I have for my opening statements.
Steve?
Well, actually, I'm just gonna make one comment, and I'm gonna turn it over to Chris Pirlot, who is the Operations Director and Director of Parking. And that one statement would be, as this falls under the Parking Division, Parking Division is completely off levy. They are a user-supported enterprise, and any revenue generated through the sale of on-street parking would actually not be something that would be eligible to go to the general fund. That would go to the Parking Division, which is, again, a special revenue fund.
I think I do that, and I think I'm fine with that.
But with that, Operations Director Pirlot did prepare the brief 3-page summary that we handed out to you, and a comparison must be, I'm assuming, similar to what Alder Sawyer just handed out, although ours was limited to the top 10 in population.
And I've got an extra copy for you folks too.
All right, Chris, since we just got this, can you walk us through this, please?
Sure. One of the sheets is titled State of Wisconsin 10 Highest Population Cities Comparison of On-Street Overnight Parking Restrictions. Just a single summary sheet. We looked at this about 2 months ago when there was some discussion initially before this particular item came to INS. So we looked at the top 10 Wisconsin cities by population. Of those, just in the FYI, 8 of them have some sort of night parking restrictions. Madison does not, and Janesville does not. Now, that doesn't mean that others don't have some kind of a variance. Like technically Milwaukee is no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. unless you want to buy a permit. They're a lot larger city, almost 3 times the population density of Green Bay, a lot bigger parking program. 20 times more parking revenue, or $20 million parking revenue for a city of Milwaukee versus $3 million for the city of Green Bay. A lot more staff members. We have 2 staff members in the office that, you know, we'd have to restructure quite a bit to deal with a citywide permit system and enforcement as well. You know, those type of things can be conquered, but that's just something that has to be thought about if anything like this would happen. I've done a lot of research over my almost 3 decades of being a parking manager, and again recently. And we don't have to go over my son. I try to keep the report on this time. I've written lots of reports and summaries over the years on this very issue. It's been to this committee probably 20 times since I've been here, for discussion and debate at different levels and for different reasons. I don't dispute anything that, the Milwaukee program, we all know how it works. If you want to park on streets, it's even odd, and you got to buy a permit, and it's enforced. The interesting thing I found out about Milwaukee is, and then I'll get into a little more detail, on just the generalities of the whole issue. Milwaukee, if Milwaukee's any indicator, this concerns me as just in general as a parking person. Contrary to popular belief by probably many, the vast majority of people on this planet, parking divisions and police departments are not in business to generate revenue. They're in business to spur compliance. Unfortunately, the spurring of compliance ends up being a punitive issue. We don't have goals. We don't have quotas for citations. If we're gonna have a goal, my goal is that we never have to write a parking citation, but that's not real. So unfortunately we do. But one thing that I found interesting in the city of Milwaukee's program, just as a comparison because we use that as a basis point, is that 30%, in 2017, the most recent citation numbers I could get from Milwaukee, they issued 212,473 citations for night parking violations. That's even with the permit program. Okay, so they're twice as large as us and 6 times more population. And they issued 87,858 citations for parking on the wrong side of the street at night. Now, when you add that all up and do the math, that's 30% of the people did not understand the even on-site parking. And that concerns me as a parking operator. Now, I understand the big city, Milwaukee needs it. They have a higher population density. They were developed differently. City of Green Bay, basically, almost all of our houses, not 100%, but a lot higher percentage, much higher percentage of Milwaukee has front driveways, has garages. Milwaukee, you get into the core of the city, they don't have front driveways. They have a garage, if they're lucky, that's right off the alley with no driveway. And then people still put stuff in their garage. So it's a different culture, it's a different way of the city was built. They're a lot bigger city. So professionally, I have a hard time balancing and comparing Milwaukee to Green Bay. By statute, Milwaukee is a Class A community, Green Bay is not. Well, in Wisconsin, Milwaukee is the only Class A community. There's a lot of different things statutorily too that happen that way. So just getting back into the crux of the issue. There's basically 3 stages of parking development as a community develops. And I just call them stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Stage 1, you got your low population communities, semi-rural, whatever. Basically, they have no restrictions. No one parks on the street because everyone's got enough parking. No big deal. They can do their city services. The residents are fine. And every now and then, if something happens, they work around it. The stage 2 communities, mid-sized communities like Green Bay, we may or may not have parking restrictions, but it depends on the population density. The history of development, like I talked about, Green Bay was developed with a lot higher respect to providing off-street parking for the residents, whereas Milwaukee, Chicago, New York, they don't. It's zero frontage, zero setback buildings. Many houses don't have garages and driveways here. They work off the alley system, and we don't. We try to minimize the alley system. History of development here, zoning and planning rules, and then our need to regulate parking and for safe and proper community services, like we've talked about this many times: street sweeping, snow plowing, policing. The police department has weighed in on this issue in the past too. And in your stage 3 communities, and I would classify Milwaukee more as a stage 3 larger community: Milwaukee, LA, Chicago's, Philadelphia's, New York's. The bigger, higher density cities. And those are the cities that they have restrictions imposed. Like I said, Milwaukee technically has. It's no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. But because of the way their city has developed over a lot longer period than Green Bay, they're forced into this, dealing with this issue. They have to do something because otherwise their people would have no place to park. The vast majority. And they know that even if it's going to negatively impact policing or city services, we got to do something. Professionally, like I said, I see Green Bay as a stage 2 type parking development community, and we don't have, luckily, anywhere close to the issues that the big cities have. We're, for lack of better words, I call Green Bay a glorified farm town. We do have a lot of Midwestern values and just a lot of more blue collar than the bigger cities. And we have the privilege of having a lot of off-street parking. Yes, some of our cities, our houses are pretty tight. I just happened to talk to a lady yesterday on Hubbard Street. And she said her house is 147 years old. But she has a driveway and she doesn't have a garage, but she's got a carport. And the next door neighbor doesn't. But in general, people have to work around that. I understand that. I did that, shuffled cars and parked at the church when I was younger because we didn't have enough parking. But professionally, I can't recommend, from a parking division and come out and say that, yeah, we need some kind of a permit system. We do have an allowance system that I believe professionally works pretty good. You know, it's not gonna address everybody every day of the year, but it address the vast majority of people for their so many occurrences per year. We've had several people in the last couple of years, 2 or 3, come to us, and they've got extra allowances for the things that they deal with. But, you know, basically, that's the long and the short of it. You know, if we get to an overnight on-street parking allowance, just things that would have to be considered, more staff, you know, a change in staff in the office, enforcement. And then, you know, police department would probably have to, you know, they'd do something different with their MO, the way they do business at night for policing, whatever. But we also have a federally mandated stormwater protection program that I don't want to say unfortunately, but a lot of people just don't understand the details of it. And we, City of Green Bay, have to meet a solids removal level that our utility division can talk to you until they're blue in the face and get your reward about it. But it is very important. It's part of the way of doing life in a bigger city. And we have to sweep day and night. There's no two ways about it. And we're on the fringe of, you know, making our federal requirements. Snow removal, we already get a lot of complaints. You know, like I said, I've been with the city 29 years in public works, had the privilege of being here. But there hasn't been a year that, even when I wasn't in operations division, when I was in traffic division and still in parking, everybody fields phone calls about how good or bad, mostly on the negative side, or how we didn't do enough to take care of the snow. With cars allowed to park on the street in the winter, I can only say and speculate from my professional experience, we're going to get even more complaints like that. Cars will pack down the snow, and you know, we'll have to deal with getting that packed snow off the ground. And extended time to remove snow if cars are routinely on the ground. When you get a smaller snowfalls, where we're not going to have a snow emergency and make people get off the street. Of course, police department will have to work, like I mentioned, think about something with their nighttime policing programs. And like I also mentioned earlier, I'm just concerned about it's not my goal, and it never makes me happy to say, yeah, we're gonna get more parking citations, but if Milwaukee's any indication, we're gonna still have a problem with people understanding even odds. Of the communities in the state of Wisconsin that I've looked at where they have even odd, not all of them do it the way that Alderman Stoyer was talking about, where, okay, tomorrow's a odd day and it's no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Today's an even day. Well, I'm gonna park on the even side tonight because I'm parking at 10 p.m. and it's an even day. And then the next morning they have a citation because they parked on the wrong side. It's about 50-50 as to the communities that I've seen in the state of Wisconsin that, okay, someone will say, okay, look, what's the date today? That's the side you park on. What's the date tomorrow? That's the side you park on. And I was shocked to see the amount of percentage of citations issued that Milwaukee issues just for parking on the wrong side. And their program's been around for a long time. So to make a long story short, you know, I can't be professionally an advocate for any kind of additional, you know, parking. I just don't see it professionally. Parking division doesn't see it professionally that we need it. We understand that there are. I couldn't tell you what the percentage of houses are in the whole city that have limited parking. You know, I personally have too many cars in my driveway. I'm lucky enough to have a parking space though, but not everyone has that privilege. But at this time, parking division just, we don't have, and Public Works, I would go on record as, you know, Public Works is parking division too. And we don't see the need, the outright dire need to change our overnight on-street parking program at this time.
And Chris has alluded to issues that the police department has expressed in the past. Most of those related to quality of life and/or the ability to identify suspicious vehicles because the vehicle doesn't belong on street between those hours. One of the other that has recently come up for discussion in this regard is relative to determination of abandoned vehicle. If a vehicle is parked on street and on-street parking is allowed during those nighttime hours, it becomes much more difficult to make that determination as to whether the vehicle is abandoned or just has been parked and not moved over a course of a period of time. So it's definitely going to weigh in and adversely impact their ability to enforce that type of violation of ordinance as well.
Well, no, I appreciate the comments. You know, I know that you folks work with this daily, and Chris, I appreciate all the insight you gave on it. You know, I'm just looking at your list of top 10 population cities, and I've got most of those cities in this as well, and I did some research myself, and maybe there's apples and oranges here, but, you know, I'd like you to look at what I came up with as well, you know, and see if you could, you know, certain cities, you say there are nighttime restrictions, and I'm looking at some things and it said no. So, you know, we probably had different resources that we looked at. I went to the website of each city and looked at their parking restrictions. Some of them were a little hard to decipher, I'll admit it. You know, it's like, so I take a little, you know, that can be a problem when you try to read this stuff. But I went through it fairly thoroughly over the last couple of weeks, and just found that there is some cause to have something like this. And Chris, I appreciate your insight that, you know, Milwaukee is not Green Bay in terms, I understand, I lived in Milwaukee, so there were areas that were tight, and some people did make mistakes, I understand that. You might have to hire extra staff. I was just looking at Green Bay in terms of the city itself. It's 13 to 14 miles east to west. The far west, far east side, you have plenty of room. You have houses, you've got multi-family garages, they've got plenty of room to park. When you get toward the central city, Alder Johnson's district, the east part of my district, District 6, part of District 8, I mean, there's a number of areas that there just isn't a lot of room. And I know that we have these situations where you have, you know, 6 different instances where you can have parking up to 2 weeks. And, you know, people are pretty appreciative of that, but there are still people that's still not enough because of the dynamics of their particular family. I didn't say, you know, I did mention before that I wasn't looking at, you know, snow emergencies or, you know, snow, you know, stay off the streets. It's not like 24/7 all year round. So, you know, in a lot of the communities that I read about were like that. So I think there are, you know, like I said, I read a lot of different websites on the different cities, and they all had different factors. They have different dynamics, different politics. I don't know. There's any number of reasons. I did talk to the parking utility people in Milwaukee, the head of the parking utility. I can't think of his name right now.
Tom, I can't think.
Yeah, Tom. Very nice guy. I talked to him probably 3 or 4 times, and he was very amenable to giving me information, and that's one reason I kind of pursued it a little bit. Like I said, we could have 10 different people talk about this project or subject, and you'd have 10 different opinions. So, you know, I brought this forward. I know it's been, you know, tabled or whatever before, but because of a citizen's concern, and that citizen spoke up for other citizens as well in the area, I just thought it was important to at least bring it up for discussion again. I know it's tiring. I know you have to do a lot of research on it, but it seems like you've got a lot of it memorized, so that helps. I didn't have it memorized. I had to kind of go through a lot of stuff, and I felt like I was back in school. So I don't know. I don't know what to say on this right now. I don't know if
Alder,
there are other.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've probably seen it half a dozen times over the last 15 years myself. It seems to come up every 2, 3, 4 years. And I'll tell you, opinions are usually split, maybe 60-40 on it. You get some people pretty passionate about it both ways. I know we love holding things, but I think for this type of an item, it's a major change. I mean, if we were to change to overnight parking, that is a big change that could get people fired up both ways. And I think we need a little more feedback. I know I'm gonna be doing a newsletter here in the next month. I'm gonna be knocking on every door and talking to people. I think everybody gets out and talks to people. I think this has been covered a lot in the media. I think we should really get a feeling for what people want. I mean, I've always been more inclined to allowing some type of overnight parking. You know, it's never gone through. That's fine. People live with it. They find a way to adapt. But I'm going to make a motion to hold this item for 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, unless you want to move forward to something, Alderman. But right now,
No,
I really want more feedback. If we move on something tonight, it's going to be.
I agree with you in the sense that, you know, even when we were talking at Park Committee about another issue, you know, we want more data, you know, things on that order. I know that staff has provided quite a bit here, and I have a bunch of it as well, but it's kind of like,
I was going to say, I know it's been in the media because I received 2 calls. They must have saw something in the news, and they both called, and they were very adamant against changing it. They
Right.
let me know in no uncertain circumstances they didn't want to change,
Right.
so
no,
you must have seen it somewhere.
I've got calls both ways, even in my own district.
Oh, yeah.
So like I said, I'm not tying myself to a post here or anything on it, but, you know, I brought it forward. I think it merits some discussion.
Definitely.
You know, if this is something that, you know, down the road could be just some kind of solution come up with, I'm fine with that, so I'll go with your motion.
Alder, well, I know I'd like to share a few comments, and Alder LaFave, if you would like to grace us with your witty wisdom.
Is that the right person?
You know, you wanted numbers with my issues, so I would like to ask Kristen, how many citations are a lot of people getting citations for parking on the streets? You know, that might be a.
So I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I'm just going from general memory. The city of Green Bay, we issue less than 40,000 parking citations per year. So
For a population of.
for a population of 105,000, that's not many. I'm happy for that. That means that generally speaking, our residents understand what we need or don't need to do. I'm thinking, recalling, we talked about this not too long ago, and I put a summary report together, but I don't have it with me. I'm recalling maybe 6,000 or 8,000 citations, and I can't say that you can quote me on that. I can get back to you. But there's several thousands of tickets issued every year for overnight on-street parking violations, which of course you're going to find them because if it's an enforceable offense, we have to patrol. Otherwise there's no reason to have that restriction.
So, just a couple thoughts maybe that I would offer up. One of the things I would like to see is the number of overnight parking citations that we do issue, because if we do provide some type of solution that is revenue that is accounted for, and again, it's not the intent, but it is there, and that's what helps support the overall parking division. That's probably the only way that I would even support a permit. To me, I think we need to separate the issue of revenue generated from permits relative to, you know, like, hey, this is a revenue generator. I don't think we should be out generating revenue for the sake of generating revenue. There needs to be a purpose tied to it. And so for that reason, I really do think it is important to separate the dollars from the problem. And I think the fact that this keeps coming up year after year indicates that we haven't fixed a problem yet. There's a problem that exists in terms of why this keeps coming up. And so my recollection of this, Alder Stoyer, when you submitted this was, when we referred it back to staff, was to actually have staff come back with some possible solutions. And I think what I'm looking at is a list of reasons why we shouldn't do this. And so I'd still like to see a list of possible solutions. Because at the end of the day, I know that I've got a lot of old homes, single driveways, growing families, and they don't have a way to accommodate that, and some of them get put into a really tight pinch. And so I want to be able to find a solution for those residents throughout the city who are directly affected by this. I would like to have the police department come here next time as well, that this is reported back on, because again, we say that the police, likes this, but what does it actually mean? And I think I need to understand better, how many times does this really come in handy for the police relative to sort of that opportunity cost, if you will, of not having our residents have the ability to utilize overnight parking? I appreciate the top 10 highest population cities, but I think we're looking at the wrong list. I'd really like to see what is De Pere doing, Alloway doing, Bellevue, Howard Swamico. I get they're not identical, but those are neighboring cities that have different policies, and they seem to have found some solutions that directly, I think, answer maybe some of the concerns that are brought up here. So I would like to see as well a report that actually talks about some of our neighboring villages and cities. And maybe just the last point that I would make is that the quality of life discussion goes both ways. I think that's probably why you see the division sometimes between people, right? There are those folks that don't want to see it on the streets, but there is a quality of life discussion to be had as it relates to individuals who are inconvenienced by not being able to have enough parking stalls. And so I do think we need to be open at least to having that two-way dialogue, because I'm not sure that that's occurring just yet. So those are my comments. I would like to see this referred back to staff for for that additional information, or held, whatever, but.
I think just adding to that, just the amount of events that we have, 6 events?
Yes,
We can
6
park-
events are allowed per year, up to 2
Right.
weeks each.
And like I said, it seems to work for folks, but there's others that it doesn't work for. So I'd like to see that as part of the study, as far as report. If there's another solution for that.
How often that gets used, the data
Right.
behind that program?
Right.
Do we record that?
I'll have to look into it. I don't think we track it real heavily. It's a
Like I
really
said, I
Excel
don't wanna-
spreadsheet. It's not used a lot.
Right, but, granted, but like I said, a lot of times when we vote on issues, it's nice to have something
Yeah.
concrete we can
We'll take a
at.
look, Chris, if you've got it, great.
Yeah, okay.
And 2 other things that we'd like you to just keep in consideration. One of the things that's talked about is relative to snow operations. And we talk about, obviously, if there's a snow emergency. Okay, over the past 6 years that I've been the Director of Public Works, we have run between, I think our lowest was 8, our highest was 15 plowable events. And I average declaration of a snow emergency once a year. So without a formally declared snow emergency, we have 7 to 14 plowable events where we could have cars parked on street, and there's no requirement for them to move that, so we are, if any type of on-street parking program is put in, I will guarantee you, we are going to plow cars in. That's going to happen.
So can you alter
Well,
like what sets the
right,
standard
I
for
think-
what you call a snow emergency?
Just 2 inches. I saw some that said 2 inches of
There's the
snow.
ability to do that, but no, you will run into Chicken Little syndrome. You will declare a snow emergency for everything, and people will start ignoring the snow emergency. During true snow emergencies, we overwhelm the towing companies. We can't get the cars off of the street fast enough because there aren't enough tow trucks out there. And if you're asking me to do that for every 2-inch snowfall,
I don't think we're asking anything, we're asking for
Well,
information right now.
I'm saying it will cause a problem. The other thing that we've never discussed, but is a very real problem, in 10 zones every day, 5 east, 5 west, we have garbage collection. If we have cars, and the car doesn't have to be parked directly in front of the cart. If a car is parked on street in such a manner that we're either using Peterbilt 320s or what are the new ones?
Auto cars.
The auto cars. We're not talking about a sports car, we're talking about a garbage truck. They don't turn on a dime. We're gonna have difficulty getting around that parked car to get in to collect people's garbage and or recycling, which is gonna generate additional calls for service that, hey, DPW, you guys missed our garbage, you gotta come back out here and get it. So
Yeah,
just two
that's-
more things to keep in
No, I-
mind as
I
consideration.
appreciate that. So,
So when you're looking, I guess, at your list here, I would encourage you to add those two things to this list when we're discussing this again when it comes back.
Just to throw it out there if I could, in reading the article that you provided, Alderman Stoyer, there was a newspaper article, I think, about how Milwaukee changed some of it. They have some wards or districts where it's allowed. It must be maybe where there's more of the restrictions where they need the on-street parking and the rest of the city isn't.
right, so
So-
it wouldn't have to be citywide, and like I said, when this city was developed, you know, it's an old city, you know, lots were smaller, buildings were smaller, garages were smaller, people were smaller, I don't know. It just, over a period of time, you know, things have expanded.
Yeah, it's,
I'm part of that.
I mean, a lot of the homes in the inner part here have maybe a driveway for a car and a garage, maybe some more, but it's pretty tight. And some of the answers you get sometimes, from people is like, well, if you need more than 3 cars, you gotta move. You gotta move to the suburb, or you gotta move further out. Like, how do you tell somebody that? Like, because their home's older, that they have a couple kids, or a parent living with them, that you can't live there.
I think one of the problems is that if you have a policy, if it's a citywide policy, it's like, quite a few people wouldn't have to worry about it, they're fine with it, but there are groups that would have issues, so I don't know if you can look at it, just portions of it, certain wards, certain cities, and like I said, there's probably six wards, I'm sorry, aldermanic districts that have issues.
Boy, that would be where that data would come in handy, how many requests have we had, and where are they? Boy, if we had a nice map and they were all, in
I
one
like
little
map-
area,
I like
we know, boom,
maps.
there's the problem.
That would be nice to have a map.
Okay, so I have a motion to hold until the next meeting?
Do you need more time than that, 2 weeks, 4 weeks,
Quite possibly.
So what do we do, a month? Does that work, Chris?
And if we need
I
more
can
time.
make it work.
Okay,
If
so
you
we'll
need
hold
more
for a
time,
month
just-
and then with also the request that all those
Mhm.
things are collected before then. We
I'll-
have a second by
I'll
Stoyer.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's talk Star. Consideration possible action request by Alder Stoyer to look at the possibility and feasibility of renaming the Walnut Street Bridge the Bart Starr Memorial Bridge. Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, a few weeks back, wasn't all that long ago, they had a special day for Bart Starr, who passed, a very famous athlete and philanthropist that we all know about. I had a citizen, a friend of mine named Lou Seiler, S-E-I-L-E-R if you need the spelling, gave me a call and said, hey, Mark, what should we do? Or how about doing something to honor Bart Starr by the city? Something like renaming a bridge. My first reaction was, no, I don't know about that, but then I thought about it. We did name one bridge for Ray Nitschke. Bart Starr, I think, I grew up watching Bart Starr as a child, so his athletic achievements are amazing, but I think the character of the man was amazing too. So I think in some respects, I find that to be almost more valuable than his athletic achievements. So they had an event at Lambeau Field, the family was up. I brought this forward, the TV stations interviewed, talked about it. I just had a conversation with Representative Grzinski, Stash Grzinski, who is very much in favor of this. The fact is, the bridge is part of the highway, right, state highway, so 29? Okay. And I think that's one,
Actually, Walnut, no.
No.
See, I didn't think it was initially.
29 comes across me.
Yeah, where is 29? I thought
That's 41 goes
somebody,
across.
141 goes across me. 29 comes
No,
across
29
me.
is
29 comes across Walnut. yes.
it goes, okay.
Shut
I did look at a map and saw that, and I think the fact that, Representative Grzinski works at the state, he said he's very much in favor of this, but he'd like to champion that a bit down at the state level. And I just wanted to make sure that 29 went across that bridge, because otherwise, locally, we can't do a whole lot with that. I would propose that the city come up with a resolution. I'll be happy to work on that. to show support for that. I also contacted Aaron Popke of the Green Bay Packers. He sounded very interested as well. I talked to Mayor Genrich. He sounded interested as well. So I'm very much in favor of bringing this forward. I think it would be a great honor. I think it's well-deserved. I know I got all sorts of messengers on Messenger and Facebook of, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? And I won't even go through some of it. A lot of it just throwing darts. Just silly suggestions. But this one I think is legitimate. I respected this person not only as an athlete, but as a person. He gave much to this community, and I think it would be well-deserved. So that's where I stand.
Staff, any feedback?
Yes, we reached out to Wisconsin Department of Transportation on this and received a message back from Brian Brock, who's the maintenance section chief with the Northeast region. Brian indicated that WISDOT does not have a policy or the ability to rename state highways or bridges. Bear in mind that the Walnut Street Bridge and the Don A. Tillman Bridge on Mason Street are not city-owned, so we have no jurisdiction over those bridges. We can't do anything to them.
Right.
Whereas the Ray Nitschke Memorial Bridge on Main Street and Dousman is actually a city-owned facility, which is why we were able to do the naming of it.
Right.
Numerous bridges and highways have been named, but that takes place through state legislative action, and the naming laws are listed under state statute. So this is not something that the city would have the ability to take care of. It would have to take place through legislative action through the state.
And like I said, I was thankful to talk to Representative Staj Krasinski about this, and I'm good with that. So.
What if we switched, you said Ray Nitschke Bridge we have authority over?
Yes, we do.
Since it changes from Main to Dousman, can we do half with Star and half with Nitschke, offense, defense? Is that possible? Steve, do we have a policy at all in place with like, whenever?
I'm trying.
A policy with when we rename? I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff come up over the years, renaming streets,
We
renaming.
do not have a formal policy on it. It's something that was discussed with some debate a few years back after the last Super Bowl victory, because there was some discussion relative to renaming a street for Mike McCarthy after the last Super Bowl win. Again, we do not have a formal policy. We did take a look into a policy similar to what some other municipalities have had and what DOT does on some of theirs, where the street name remains the same, but it gets a supplementary title. So it's Ashland Avenue / the Alderman Brian Johnson Highway. Okay.
Is that over or under?
Yeah.
As in, for instance, notice I just said the Alderman Johnson Highway, not Memorial Highway.
Thank you for that.
But it
We'll see how the
kind
rest
of
of this
is
meeting
a,
goes.
it's kind of a subtitle type of a thing, so it's an honorarium.
Yeah.
And bridges, not so much a problem. Roads, streets do become problematic, because one of the things that we found as the discussion was going on and we were looking at candidate streets, we got significant pushback from especially businesses along those streets, because what we were being told by the business, there is an extremely high cost associated with that change of address.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Everything from Google Maps getting conflicting addresses and not being able to find a new address, to things like letterhead and stationery and business cards and everything under the sun has to be reprinted with that new address. So quite honestly, we got a lot of pushback from businesses in business corridors that we were considering with Mike McCarthy. Again, not such a big deal with the bridge because you typically don't have an address
Right.
on a bridge. But again, Frigo was renamed through legislative action.
Okay. Well, part of the reason I ask is it just, I obviously have a great deal of respect for the Green Bay Packers and what they do for our community. I think Bart Starr is obviously a very stand-up individual, but holy moly, there's a lot of other great people in our community that deserve recognition as well, and they're never talked about, because there's always this migration to the green and gold. And so that's partly, I guess, why I ask if there's a policy in place to kind of make a determination about like what warrants a renaming of a street, a bridge, any type of infrastructure. And I'm just curious, I guess, if other communities have policies and if it makes sense for us to consider one.
Because it hasn't been an issue, it hasn't risen to the level of developing a policy, I guess is the best way to put it. Developing a policy at this point is almost a solution in search of a problem.
Sure.
With that being said, we've not seen a high demand for the renaming of streets. We do spend a lot of time on the initial naming of streets. With new subdivisions, it's generally the purview of the subdivision developer, that person who's platting that land and dedicating the right-of-way over public purpose. They get the privilege of naming the streets within the subdivision. And what we look for are obscene, vulgar, those types of things. And staff is pretty good at weeding those out, but going into some subdivisions, you can see what ancillary activities are important to the developer simply by the name of the roads that are in their subdivision. So we've got some residential subdivisions over on the far east side that I'm familiar with, immediately north of Preble High School. All the streets are named after guns. You get over off of Huron Road, and there's a couple of streets in there that are named after NASCAR-related individuals or things like that. So it's, sometimes they're named after people's children. We've got two subdivisions off of Huron Road that are named after the children of the developer. So we
And
do
I have
I'm
a
not
street
worried-
that
I'm
felt
not
the need
worried
to
about
honor
that.
mullets.
Yeah.
Yes. The hairstyle of choice of the late 80s, early 90s.
Well, I'm not worried about that. I know, I understand.
So-
And I was just, I
But
mean,
just
it was
by-
tied in,
For
but
point of
we don't have to take it
clarification,
up now.
it's that
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of renaming,
Yeah.
we concentrate more on new names.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the bridge.
All right,
Yeah.
Alder Story, what do you want to do?
I'm fine with that
Receive,
motion.
that's the motion.
The motion would be to,
We can't do anything, so receive.
we
and
really
place on file.
can't.
Well,
It's not an action
If I
item.
may,
Yes.
the item itself that we were discussing, I think would be appropriate for receive and place on file, but if you wanted to add to that, to
I would wait.
prepare a resolution.
I would, yes, that would be to have the city.
Which is something that the council can
Yeah.
do.
To give to the state?
Correct.
Is that the idea? Okay.
I
In
would
sup-
be- I
To
would
submit
be
to
in
the
favor
state
of that.
in support of.
So how do you want to word that? I mean, I could just say.
Just
Well,
like that,
it would be
Alder
to receive
LaFave.
and place on file the request by Alder Steuer to look at possibilities, so on and so forth, and to prepare a resolution in support of the renaming.
To be given to the state or,
Right.
yeah, something to that effect. Okay,
Alder LaFave?
yes.
Okay, this is Mark's area. He loves history. I'll
I
give you a
do.
little history.
I do, yes.
I found out after we moved in, bought our house, that Preble, it was, they annexed Preble before we bought our house. And I found out from a former...
Can you give them this history lesson after?
Yeah.
Is it relevant to the item?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
The city had their process then, which they would ask residents to name the street. And there were two ladies on my street that named East Shore Circle. So it used to be the citizens. Mark likes history, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Alder Steuer, a second by Alder Weary. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number, yes.
Taking a 5-minute break. Be right back.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if
you
you
are?
can continue without me or not.
No, we can't.
Or Kathy
Oh,
goes
Galvin.
in.
Yeah, Alder LaFave, step up to the podium, please.
Be right back.
Motion to approve the resolution, to draft it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Kathy, you come in? Chris
we
Chris
need
needs
to
to take a break, so step in
so
so
you
we
have
can
to
keep
sit
moving.
in for a minute.
Okay.
I guess let the record reflect that Alder LaFave is stepping in for Alder Weary.
You can have a copy.
Item number 7, consideration of possible action on policies and procedures of the inspection department. This is Alder Weary's item. All right, we'll just wait for him. I'm gonna at least read it into the record. Consideration of possible action on the policies and procedures in the inspection department as applies to communicating and working with constituents who request their alderman's assistance. Further, to discuss customer service standards and work expectations of inspectors, investigate the addition of evening and/or weekend inspection hours. Recommendation to be made to Personnel Committee only pursuant to GBMC 2.06 subsection 9. Yeah, we'll just wait for Chris to get here. It's his item, so.
They want to give you the one page copy.
Really want?
From the front.
One page copy.
The one I handed out. Put them all together.
You gave me a whole pack though.
Right, but there was one page that just had yes and no.
Oh, that thing? You want that back?
I want one page. Yeah, I'll find another one.
It's the same thing that Steph gave us.
Yeah, this one. I'll give you another copy.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's supposed to be the chamber here, not where I'm going for you.
Well, I was supposed to take a finance class at church, trying to get it all together. I think as you get older, you're more to think of. I don't.
Isn't that down to? We're just waiting for you. It's your item. All right.
I didn't look at where we were.
Yeah, we didn't adjourn or anything, so. I read it into record. So, Alder Weary.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this item, it's probably going to be something that maybe we would work on over a couple months. I don't know, maybe we'll resolve it tonight, but I don't think so. Been an alderman a long time, I have a lot of dealing with inspections. I always say inspections is the alderman's right hand. I mean, it's so important, and then usually have such a great relationship. I mean, it's a lot of education of people, you know, they don't necessarily know they're doing something wrong, and you have to show them why it's wrong and how to resolve it. That's usually what it is, but a lot of times you'll get people who have situations that are just, they're tough, and that's where you need a little creativity on how to solve it, not a hammer. And normally, like I said, for years, it's been not an issue, but it seems like the past year, and I don't know if there's been a change in policy or what it's been, and so that's why I wanted to bring this up, but I would usually, if someone reaches out to me, I'll fire off an email. I'm an emailer. I email my inspector and say, hey, what's going on here? And I'll get a little reply back, and we kind of keep in touch that way. Ken was always great. That sometimes I'd meet, Ken's long retired now, but Ken I'd meet. Lowline, yeah. I'd meet with him at people's houses, you know, and we'd go through things with people, just as an education thing, and maybe find a way that would work. And now I understand, is that even an option anymore? I was told that, you know, you can't even do that anymore. So
Correct.
which is unfortunate. You know, I don't know if some older people spoiled it for everyone, but
I've
I
heard some things.
use it as an education thing, not only for me, but the homeowner. And the reason this came up is I think a lot of us have had some issues recently. But I had a couple emails here recently. Somebody in my district on Colonial asked for help. And so I asked, you know, just what's going on. And the reply I got was, you know, I appreciate the inquiry. Please ask the constituent to reach out to me or the inspector who sent the order. On and on and on, referred me to a website to look it up myself. I'm like, well, that's happened a couple times now. It's like, well, that's not real good teamwork, because we're a team. We should be tackling this together. I mean, if somebody reaches out to me for help, I'm gonna help. And we can do it in a nice way, or I'm gonna get all riled up and, you know, cause a kerfuffle, which we don't want. So I asked Kevin Vonk, you know, the director, to tell me what the heck's going on. And then he emailed me and he said, our department prioritizes inspection issues brought by our alderpersons, and we have emphasized the importance of following up on enforcement. We asked inspectors to communicate directly with property owners and/or tenants regarding the violations. And then they copy in alderpersons with correspondence if requested, which I don't think always works. But so I wanted to hear from inspections what's going on, what changed. don't know who's the voice of that. Cheryl, it's been a long time.
I'll take that on, because I actually predate you, Alder Weary.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so historically, what had happened in the past is we had alders that were getting very involved in
Sure.
inspection issues, right?
Yeah.
They were showing up to inspections, and we're actually fighting with the inspectors about orders.
Yep.
So our inspectors were in a very bad situation because they have the alder, they're on one side, kind of the boss, right? And they're trying to enforce the code and the ordinances on the other side. That's a difficult situation to put an inspector in. We asked for some advice from the law department, and this also coupled along with the changes that open records happened with redacting information. Because you used to get
Yeah.
printed off. We used to
Yep.
just print
Yep.
off everything and give it
Yep.
to you in that whole big stack, right?
Yep.
So now when you go to the site, if you go to that website that we referenced to you, you will find, if you pull it up, and I happen to have a 23 Colonial right here, you can get everything an inspector does, you just don't get the details, which has the confidential information in it,
A
which
lot of that's the kicker.
would have to be redacted. That's why we give you this kind of like inspection, who did it, process, but it doesn't have that detail in it. But that's the reason why, because alders, it's my understanding from the law department, that alders are not privy to that confidential information, kind of like police records. You can't call up and get a police record either, for example.
Would that apply, though, if the person's asking you to help? I mean, do you have to get them to sign a waiver? If they're that's the only reason I get involved, is if someone asks me. They're like, hey, I need help with this. That's the only reason all of us usually get involved.
That helps, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, right, because they don't like the answer they're getting from the inspector, so they call the alder, hoping that you're gonna give them the answer they want to hear, which puts us in a bad situation when you deal with inspection
Sometimes that leads
issues.
to creative solutions, though.
Sometimes, most of the time, honestly, it comes down to the alders saying, can't you give this person more time? Or when we're already working on the backside, giving them more time and doing these things. It's like, who was our master is part of the problem with inspection.
Well, and inspection is a tough job. I worked, up in planning for 25
Right.
years, so I understand the dynamics of all that. But I think, what Alder Weary's saying too is I remember the one situation, we got down in the central city, there was an issue where a person got a $50 reinspection fee and then it piled up over a period of time. And it was kind of like, we're looking at this, I know there's enforcement here and et cetera, but, looking at customer service, I think that should be the mantra of the city, no matter what.
Customer service is the mantra of our department.
Right.
But by customer service,
Well-
what do you mean by that? Because there's a couple issues. If there's an inspector out there that is being rude or disrespectful, I need to know about that, because that's not acceptable behavior. If there's an inspector out there telling someone something they don't want to hear, which then makes them, I'm being harassed, or I get those too, that's a different, you're saying that's a different story. And customer service, if it's a policy that the council doesn't agree with, then let's change the policy. That's really not a customer service issue. That's kind of how we're doing procedures and policies, which, by the way, we are firming up. Paul's actually been working on SOPs for our inspectors, so we're going to have everything in writing, and we will bring that to you to review, like we get the complaint, how many days, what's the follow-up for each one of these items, when do the reinspection fees get issued, at what point do they stop, do we go to citation, those types
What's the
of things.
timeline for that?
It's a timeline, that's what we're putting together.
No, what's the timeline for us to see that?
I think we're pretty close to being done.
Yeah.
Couple of weeks
Need that before we can.
to finalize it.
Yeah,
And I know
Wanna wait until that-
this is kind of pending.
So, but there's a
Personnel's
couple-
waiting on it for us to do something.
Right.
And then hand it to personnel.
So
I'm
your,
okay with
your
that.
I'm fine.
communication,
I mean,
Alder Weary, has got like a number of things. One of
Oh,
them
yeah.
is that SOP,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
Which we can get to you, and you guys can review and tell us if you like it, because the bottom line is if council doesn't support what we're doing for inspection, you have to support inspection, we have to come together on this, because we need your support to do the job that we do, right? So policies and procedures. At any time, if we have a complaint against someone and they send us an email saying, look, would you please copy an alder in on this? We do that, we will do that, that's not a problem. So we'll copy them in on emails. I don't know with regards to providing that complaint tracking, if we can do that or not. That's a question for the law department.
Sometimes you'll have people who are not on the internet, whether they're elderly or just don't have access, and they call you and say, hey, help. So
Right.
they can't be CC'd on anything because they don't
yeah,
have
no, right. And I understand what you brought up before, Cheryl, about, you know, Alder, and I think I know, remember the situation, but, you know, sadly.
There are a number
the
of
red-
them.
Well, okay. Personally, I don't consider myself one of those folks, but we have
Mhm.
12 folks on council. Well, wait a second.
One second.
Until-
I'm not-
I don't know, maybe I am. Maybe I am part of the problem. I don't know, I mean, like I said, when I said customer service, that's kind of a broad brush.
Right.
I understand that.
So we have the policies, we'll work on the policies, SOPs, procedures. The standards and work expectations of inspectors,
That
is
sounds
that
like
the
it's part of-
SOPs? Is
yeah,
that
it
what you're
sounds like-
talking
yeah.
about? Okay. And then the ability of adding evening hours and weekend?
That's something I've always
Show us
wondered
the money.
because, well.
That's a budgetary issue, right?
Yeah, fine.
And, you know, is it just the inspectors, is it administrative staff to support them? I mean,
Well, is it a
kind of a
budget
council.
issue, or could it be different
Ins-
hours?
inspectors are hourly employees, so I'm not sure. I
So
mean,
instead of working
when they
9 to
work-
5, can they work noon to 8?
Every fifth Saturday,
I'm not sure.
whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm not sure on that, I'd have to check.
Hmm.
I know that right now, if they have to work
Flex time.
overtime, it's either they can flex it or they can comp and get paid out. It's like options, so.
Is that something you could look at?
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, find out
maybe
from
they-
personnel.
Take turns working Saturdays, take turns working evening hours, I mean,
Have you had a request for those things?
I just.
I have not heard that. as
I've
a
always thought
request
that would
we
be needed. I don't know how many times, there's an evening thing and, well, inspectors only work, you know, day job, even though our inspection issues are pretty much 24/7.
For permitting or just housing inspection?
Housing inspections, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be, especially if people are home in the evening, they're home on the weekend, that's the time you can, a lot of people, they'll get phone calls or letters, but they never get to meet the inspector,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that happens a lot. And I get a lot of complaints that people, they never get called back. And I don't know if you're just telling me that, but.
Right. And in all fairness, our inspectors kind of like to ride a little bit under the radar
Yeah.
because they're dealing with some very difficult people. We just had an inspector escorted out of the building with an officer because there was somebody here that wasn't happy with them, and that was last week.
Yeah,
So,
I believe it.
you know, it's kind of a tough job, so they're not really out there saying, hey, we're inspectors.
Or no.
They're uniformed, they're out in the field, but,
And then I find sometimes, just because of the nature of the job, sometimes I can talk to an inspector. Depending on the situation, you can see their back might be up a little bit, or, it's kind of like, well, you have to kind of navigate differently, and it's not consistent. So
well,
it's-
because our inspectors, I'm gonna be very frank with you, with alders. The inspectors are used to fighting the alders, along with trying to enforce the code. So not only are they trying to convince this person, this is what you need to do, and offer the tools to them, they also have to convince the alder. And that's that's your boss. I mean, how do you do that? How do you navigate that? I mean, we all
Well, I
should
don't
be.
think we should have to, and that's why I'm really looking
Right.
forward to those operating
Yeah.
procedures.
Yeah,
Well, and those are just our internal ones. I guess the operating procedures are kind of your operating procedures with regards to how you involve yourself on that complaint. Because there's many ways you could assist someone to work through the inspection process. But
well, this is where
working with
we,
us would be better.
a lot of the
sometimes.
alders get their connectivity with the citizens because
Right.
of issues.
Oh, right,
It's not- I mean,
absolutely.
Most of the folks that I have met or talked to for over 7 years I've been on council are the people that have issues and problems.
Right, right.
And that's.
And they're going
if
to call
fight-
you.
If you work for them or fight for them and
Mhm.
try to make sure that, okay, the city still has to do their job, a lot of times we can be a benefit too. We can.
Absolutely.
So, you got to look at that as well.
And I think meeting in person with an inspector can be a good thing. I mean, I've had a lot of times where inspector comes out and that human touch smooths it over. I don't know how many times you've had to go out in the evening or on the weekend and show somebody what needs to be done. And, yeah, okay, but
Mhm.
getting a letter or a phone call doesn't do it. But when you get out there and you say, well, here, you can see why you need to do this. And so I'm actually doing the inspector's work by
Mhm.
being the middleman, trying to explain to them why it needs to be done, right? So.
Well, and hopefully, and we've just had this actually recently, we've had a couple of alders not understand what needs to be done and
Yeah.
give the wrong information. So now the person's coming back to us saying, well, the alder told me that I didn't have to do this. And then we're like, oh, okay, now what do we do in that situation, right?
And how often has that happened in the last 6 months?
In the last 6 months,
A number of times?
3 times, at
3
least I can
times.
think right off the top of my head.
And then you have to do damage control.
Kind of, right? I'm like, well, It's
And you
the-
got bad customer service,
it's-
and it's because of the alders.
Well, and then then we have
Full circle.
that, right, and our inspectors are like, well, don't you know what's going on? The Alder told us, I mean, the person told me they could install a shed in their front yard, because the Alder said they can do it. No.
Don't look at me.
We say, talk to the inspector.
Present company excluded.
It wasn't me.
But, right, so,
Inspector, that's my usual.
Well, there are things that are common sense too, but there is no way for even us alders to know every
Right.
ordinance and every nuance
Exactly.
that's out there, so we do rely on you for that.
Mhm.
But, you know, we'll still check and try to solve it where we can.
mhm,
But I think it's important that we all respect each other.
I agree with that, 100%.
You're being,
I did have a situation, and I think you were going to talk about, lady.
Is this story time again?
No, with this here. And she's set in her way. And I went over a couple times, and finally, I got her to agree to do a planter. So now she's okay. I wanted her to do a berm with a little wall, so you can put it back there, your wood
Mhm.
chips. No, she don't want to do that. What about if I do this? Okay, you can put that in a planter. So finally, she was, she's kind of set in her way. Inspector says this, and, got a couple of sellers kind of in the middle, trying to, help her. Finally, yeah, sometimes an alder can help, but yeah, and I had to talk to Cheryl, I talked to her a couple times about the
Mhm.
situation, find out what's their side, to make sure. And I've also had a lady, she hasn't got me for quite a while, but she used to, all kinds of things, so I would go to the person. I'd go check it out, if I find the person there, I would tell them, this is what you have to do, because this is the rule. I would make sure I knew what it was, and I said, if you don't do it, I'll give you a couple days or so, and if you don't do it, then I will report you. And it
Thank
kind of
you.
helps do the whole.
Thank you for your stories, Alder Buffet. Alder Stoyer.
Be very sure, though, you understand what they have to do,
Well,
and
with
what
this
the
pol-
code is, and what they
I
can and
have
can't do.
I have no stories, but anyway, as far as the, working with, bringing this policy forward.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if there would be code of conduct, if you will, that you would expect from us in there. Is there anything that,
I would, yes.
and I don't know if that's a combination
I
of,
thought there was something.
like what- what we can do?
Maybe
Well,
not
there's just
you.
the general.
Is
It
the
was just kind of a
general?
general.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, okay, you could have maybe several, what I'd like to see is maybe several examples of certain things, a fence issue, a porch, you could just tentatively say, okay, here's the
Right.
situation.
Right,
And I realize that there's hundreds of different situations, but if you had a couple that were somewhat prominent where we've had experience with that over time, to maybe say, okay, this is what we do, and what is expected, how do you do that in such a way that
that
not make
would
us feel
be
like we can't do our job?
UDC training, maybe? I mean, there's some
Well-
things, garbage pickup. There are some obvious things, cars, garbage pickups. But there's more difficult ones that,
Right.
really advocate to work
I mean,
with us. Bring the person in and we'll sit down and have a meeting. The three of us, if we need to do that. I mean, we can do those types of things.
Right. But, sometimes we need a reminder of that as well. So maybe there's something that say, like, we've noticed some of these trends and maybe we can do something differently that way.
Right.
All right, Alder Wery, what'd you like to
Yep.
do?
How long would we need, Cheryl?
Well, is this going to go back to personnel?
It is.
Next personnel meeting? Forward it back to personnel with these?
Not enough time?
Well, you gonna be ready with everything? I
Well,
mean,
that's, what, 2 weeks? Or
Mm.
when's the next personnel meeting?
I think.
2 weeks?
Back here first.
Yes.
Well,
That's nothing
that-
personal.
That's something I'm gonna ask the assistant city attorney to weigh in on. It's my understanding that it was brought to this committee because it was requested in the communication to come to this committee, but this committee doesn't have jurisdiction over this. It's a personnel matter, and it needs to go to personnel committee. So personnel held it last night because this was the first committee identified in communication. They're waiting for INS to move it over there.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So is it this, I hope this discussion helped.
Personnel.
Well, I think it will, and I think if the alders who sit on personnel review the video and read the transcript of the verbatim minutes, I think a lot of this discussion is going to be incredibly helpful for them. Unfortunately, I think we may have to have a lot of it against that personnel.
We actually planned on bringing these SOPs to protection and policy. That's where we were going to bring them, because that's normally where we bring inspection types of related issues to P&P. And then we were going to have P&P review them, go through them, then bring them to council for final approval, hopefully
Alright.
with support from the council. I mean, doesn't really make a difference to us where we take them, but
Well,
that
are
might
your
be a better fit.
questions resolved as it relates to the customer service stuff, which is probably more the personnel?
Right, if there's customer service with regards to the way inspectors are in the field, that would be a personnel issue, but I'm not aware of those issues.
Well, and obviously by the time we hear from constituents, they're already heard, so it's hard to tell.
Right,
They're seeing it through different glasses. I
right.
can't comment on that. I guess for me, a big part of it was the customer service between each other, because we're a
Right.
team.
Right,
And I'm
But-
used to getting a higher level of teamwork, and now
but you
it can be
understand
a
why
pretty
now
bare
that,
bone.
but you understand why, because of the public
Well,
records, which,
but instead of maybe, I mean, there's been times I've emailed and I haven't heard back for a week. That's uncalled for.
that is, I agree with you 100%.
Okay. Now,
And
on a
usually, in alders, we like to say 1 to 2 days, we like to get back on alders,
Yeah.
whatever that issue
because
is,
people are
regardless.
pumping on us, and if we don't hear
Exactly.
back, I mean, all I'm gonna say is the staff isn't getting back to me. And I don't wanna do that. I'd rather be quick
Well, there's-
turnaround.
Get that email to me, first of
Yeah.
all, if you don't get a response from staff, because if
Yeah.
somebody's out or something, you know what I mean, I
Yeah.
need to follow up on that. so.
I have an inspection email I send, and then it goes to like 4 people. That way I cover, like, just the general inspection email, and then a
Right.
couple different inspectors. I had an email from someone who really, I won't say the inspector,
Mhm.
they walked it through 2 paragraphs of here's what's going on, and here's a little
Right.
bit of the history.
Yep,
Perfect.
yep.
A lot of the times it'll be just, I'll go read the complaint, here's the link.
Well, but I think that email though actually had, you were working with the owner at that point, right? So it was kind of,
This is a more recent one.
oh, okay.
This was just today, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Somebody who I used to have as an inspector.
I'd say most
I'll
of the
figure
time
that out.
I've been very satisfied with inspection. I mean, I'll take a picture, I'll send
Mhm.
it there,
Right.
bam, get it,
Yeah.
they look at it, get
Excellent.
it back, and then I can get,
Yeah.
So
The
hopefully the
citizen's happy
turnaround
because
time
they wanna
normally
be
is
heard.
good, and if we miss it,
you just want to
I
be heard.
apologize for that, right?
I like to get the little bit of the background. There was one on Lock Drive that was just horrible, horrible mess, but
Mhm.
I can get a little bit of that background just so I get filled in. That's not going to be in the public record, but just kind of our internal stuff.
Mhm.
That helps me,
Right,
you know.
right,
It's-
yeah.
Lindsay, you had something to add?
And that was along the lines of the comment that I was going to make. The inspectors are free to give, non-confidential information at their discretion, but just to follow up on the code of conduct question, one of the reasons that we can't give unfettered access to all the notes and all of those things is because of the open meetings laws, but also there may be, privileged information in the notes, like if an inspector talks about what he talked to Attorney Mays about with respect to prosecution or anything like that, that's privileged, and then we run into a position where an alder may potentially, without meaning to, violate privilege, so those kinds of things. And then you run into, is it a potential ethics violation under our municipal code? So that's why we're trying to kind of avoid all of these questions, but if you do reach out to the individual inspectors, if they have the time, at their discretion, they can give you that information. And like Cheryl said, if you all sit down for a meeting or whatever is most helpful, but it is helpful, I think, from a community service perspective, to say to the constituent, when you talk to the inspector, loop me in, as well as whatever you're doing on your end to reach out, so that when the constituent asks for that, then you do begin to be CC'd on the emails and those kinds of things.
Well,
The story Alder LaFave just told you, that person went to no less than 5 alders with regards to this issue. We've gone through the whole process, so some people just will start making calls,
I
right?
refer people to their older.
And then,
well,
Otherwise
but
it'd be
each
no
alder is
problem.
going to react differently. So,
right,
I think with the legal ramifications in that, maybe just a refresher to say, okay, this is what you're allowed to say or do,
Right.
you know, and the inspectors will give certain information out
Mhm.
that they feel is okay, and it's not
Right.
confidential.
Right.
Maybe that's something that could be included in that Alder orientation communication I submitted a year and a half ago.
That just slowly.
I was thinking
You're
about
back,
that, yeah.
Great.
I was thinking
Well,
about that.
that's
What
fine.
happened to that, actually? Just
And I've been here
talking
7
about
years and I still haven't.
Cheryl's taking a note. Thank you, Cheryl.
Oh, is that something you're working on?
That's
Not me
funny.
specifically, but the law
The
department.
law
is
department is
working.
Well,
working, they
but
just
you
told
can-
me that, and I said, please have inspection at that meeting, so we can go through processes, so you understand how it works, right? Even
Yeah.
timelines and
Flow
those types of
charts,
things. Flow
maps.
charts. Numbers.
Is that item below or above my review of the ethics policy that we've been waiting on for a year?
All right. What do we got in this issue?
I'm not.
You're not getting above me.
I think we've had a good discussion here. I mean, we've got enough number of people here. It's going to go to another committee or two. Is it going to protection policy first?
That's up to this committee, right? Where you'd like to refer this to? This, your communication to, right?
Well, I mean, personnel would have to handle
It's that
part of it.
Part of it. I think, I'm on protection of policy, I'd be more than willing to look at that.
All
I
right.
think we.
So bring the SOPs to
Yeah.
P&P,
Sure.
and then next personnel, are there specifics for the, is it the customer service part of the communication?
Yep, that, and then, look at the evening and weekend.
The evening and
Look at it,
weekend
see what
hours,
what
if
do
there's a
other
possibility.
municipalities do. If nobody's
Mhm.
doing it, well, I mean,
Well,
doesn't mean we
right.
don't
Yeah.
want to do it, but
Oh,
what
we
would
can
it
look at
take?
that.
What would it mean?
It's probably gonna come down to a cost potentially.
And that's, but
So
I don't know
that's the bottom
what that
line.
means.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll find out if there's a way to flex those hours, or if we can
Yeah.
require that or not, or force it.
Just at least look at it, just
Yep.
chew over. I appreciate it,
Yes.
and I do love it. It's honestly. I always say the right hand. I mean,
All right, do we need a
when
motion
we're a
here?
team, it's great. So to refer to the Protection of Policy Committee.
All right, we have a motion by Weary,
Second.
second by Starr. Any discussion? Seeing none, all
This
those in favor say.
Well, just one point of clarification, this would be for the next PNP meeting, or is this over a period of time? What are we looking at?
I guess whenever they're ready.
Time frame?
Probably do the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks, 4 weeks?
To finalize.
You said.
The housing inspection, yeah.
That's 3 weeks?
Oh, it's next, so
PNP's next
PNP is,
Oh, give us
no,
one. Yeah,
council,
give us- oh, no,
council's
council's
next
next
week, so it'll be,
Council's next week.
Weekend.
It's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In three to 4 weeks, how about that?
Give us a month.
All right.
All right.
a month, that's fine. I'll second.
So that timeframe though is added to the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Public Works staff, for your
Yeah.
patience on that one. Item number
And you
8,
don't have to go. That's the
consideration,
greatest thing. You could stay with us the rest of the.
consideration with possible action on request by the Department of Public Works on proposed 2020 parking division rates and fees.
Every year when we prepare the budget, as I'm sure you well know, because we come to you every year about this time. And as Director Grenier mentioned earlier, parking is a standalone enterprise fund of the city, so it's money in, money out. It's not tax levy supported. So we have to generate our own revenue in order to pay our own bills. So looking at the history of the rates, economy, all that fun stuff, and then our budget needs. Basically, we came up with a rate proposal. I see there's one error, minor error. If you go to the last page, table 3, on the report that I put together, proposed 2020 parking rates.
What does this report look like?
It's 5 pages. Looks like a memo, and it's titled Proposed 2020 Parking Division Rates and Fees.
Oh, here it is.
But table 3 on the back, technically on 2019, we did increase, if you will, the parking, not the citation itself, but there was a rate increase. We had to add $2 processing fee on. We just did that about a month or so ago. So technically, the current rates are 17, 27, 37, 102, and 152. Now, just going back to the basics, taking a look at history and needs, we are proposing for 2020 a 2% rate increase on rental rates. We did that last year. We didn't do it the year before. It depends on, like I said, economy and needs. We've gone as long as 2 years, there were some years way back in the day, in the 90s, where we might have gone 3 years in between, no rate increase, but 2%, and as you can see, historically, we've gone 4%, 3%. So we've moderated it quite a bit, but we're proposing 2%, basically cost of living type stuff on the rental rate increases. Hourly parking rates, we're proposing, right now, our off-street in the ramp hourly and the parking meters are both at 85 cents an hour. Rule of thumb in the parking industry, you really want to have your parking meters a little bit higher than off-street. Try to, kind of an encouragement, hey, park off-street if you're going to want to park for an extended period of time. Otherwise, leave those parking meters for people who really want to be or need to be in front of that business or whatever. So that's an adjustment. If you go back historically, we've tried to do that through the current last 10, 15 years to try to keep the parking meters a little bit higher than off-street. And a nickel, I mean, it's not a lot, but it's there. We have not made a parking citation rate increase in 5 years, with the exception, as I mentioned, of the processing fee that was added on because we have to do business now in a cloud-based age. So we are proposing it, and we did a statewide study, and I got responses. There's another single page, just fact sheet, because I wanted to see what's the rest of the state doing. It's titled Wisconsin Statewide Parking Citation Survey Results, September 19th. Yeah, I apologize for the size. I wanted to put it all on one page.
That's a font size 2.
Yeah, it's like a 2-inch.
You fit it,
But there's a little color in there.
Oh my God, wait a
I
minute.
apologize. But basically, you can see there's a wide variation across the state. I broke it into, close by cities and then other cities. Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, larger cities are more in tune and closer to our rate structure. But, just going back and looking at our rate structure, we have not increased parking citation rates in 5 years. And the revenue stream, and like I said, we don't have goals and quotas, but the revenue stream needs revenue somewhere, and it does support the recommendation to add $5 on each of those. So right now it's 17. We're proposing a $17 go to 22, 27 go to 32, and 37 go to 42. And in the higher ones, no change. Also, we haven't had late fees. We haven't looked at late fees in 3 years. Looking at the statewide late fee, just in the averages, we're way below state average. And part of the reasoning for us, not only to get into more of the zone, if you will, regional fee structure, is, again, I don't like to make it sound like we're not. We're hoping to generate revenue, but low late fees can and have been shown to be conducive to people not being as care prone. So we'd like to get into the zone better by, right now, after 1 week of non-payment, we add on $7. And after a month of no payment, we add on another $15. We have an outstanding parking citations. I don't know the numbers, but it's quite significant. That's part of the reason we went to this new passport system, because they're going to help us improve our late collections. But by making your late rates a little more intense, punitive, we're hoping that you don't have to worry as much about late collections. Let's just get people going. They see the fee, just pay your parking citation. Admit, I parked in a no parking zone. Pay it and move on with your life. So we're long story made short, we're looking to make that 1 week late, add $12. 1 month late, we add another $22. And that falls well toward the low end of the statewide average for late fee structure. So And then even a long story made short, there's on page 2 of the report, I put together just a quick summary. So again, we're looking to increase rental parking rates by 2%, and we always round up to the nearest dime, so it'll be $42.10 plus tax. Now, of course, you add the tax, doesn't make it the nearest dime, but at least we try to advertise something that's easy to understand. Increase parking meter rates from 85 to 90 cents an hour. The overtime parking, $15 to $22, but technically it's $17 to $22, and again, I apologize, that's really a typo, inconsistent. The no parking, 27 to 32, no stopping, standing infraction, 37 to 42. And then 1 week late goes from $7 to $12, plus 7 to plus 12. 1 month late goes from plus 15 to plus 22. Everything else remains unchanged throughout the parking system. And that will make our budget balance. Again, it's does make the world go round, but that's not the primary reason we're looking at increasing rates.
Chris, I just had a question. So you haven't raised it for 5 years. I mean, with your records, you noticed that there was a loss, or you're dipping into other funds, or what happened with the budget?
Our capital reserve has taken a hit, and now we're trying to catch up. We're looking at in the foreseeable future, X number of years, X unknown quantity, needing a new ramp somewhere in the downtown. Parking study, we're looking at to update the parking study. It's been 6 years since our downtown parking study, and we need to update some of our.
What is that fund at right now? Is that privy? Are we privy to that?
Offhand, I don't know. The other thing is, as we've been having the discussions at Finance Committee, talking about the need to reduce bonding, we do about $650,000 a year in parking ramp repairs, just to keep our ramps operational. Now, Cherry came online in 2011, 12, and it's starting to need annual maintenance repairs out there, okay? The ramp isn't that old, but it's already starting to see degradation due to vehicle usage and chloride vehicles when they're parked there in the wintertime. So what we are hoping to do is get that, at the very least, that's our first step, is to try to get the parking ramp repair contract out of a bonding situation, so we're not paying interest, and come out of our operating funds. And this year, 2020's budget, I think we will finally retire the debt service payments for the Cherry Street ramp for its construction, which we're well over $470,000 a year in debt service payments there. So what we're doing is we're trying to make a conscious decision consistent with what we've been hearing through some of the other discussion relative to the capital planning and long-range planning that's come out of the Finance Committee discussions, is to make this fund operate more on a user basis rather than trying to borrow money and pay unnecessary interest. So that also plays in. I think we're looking at going from about, the net effect of some of these changes, we're going to go from about 3.4 to about $3.7 million in operating expense this year. So all the changes that we've recommended really only net another $300,000 worth of revenue. So $300,000 is 10%.
We're going to get up to speed a little bit with.
That's exactly what we're trying to do, is get ourselves positioned. And rather than make that big jump 2-3 years from now, we're making incremental progress, so it's not as brutal to the users of the system, to get ourselves positioned properly so that we are sustainable.
Did you think about the idea of doing that bigger jump at one time, or did you just feel that wasn't tenable? Just because.
We know it's inevitable if we don't do what we're doing now, and we know that just based on our correspondence with our customers, that it's not going to be received well if we do that.
Okay, that's all. That's what I needed.
So who is, when I'm looking at, one of the things I think that would be useful is a breakdown when we look at like how much revenue? I mean, we're looking at the rates, but how much revenue is generated from each of these items? And here's why I think it's relevant. Because we're talking about the need to replace that capital plan.
Mhm.
I get it, we gotta do that. I like your idea about let's not pay interest, I like that. My only concern with it, though, is that when I'm looking at these rate increases, I'm not seeing aggregate amounts. And that's important to me, because right now, when I'm looking at a percentage of increase, the people carrying the burden on that are those that weren't in compliance with parking, when I think the people that should be carrying the burden on it are those using the facilities and causing the degradation.
And we can definitely provide you with what those revenue projections are.
And again, just to back up, Steve, right, when we're looking at only a 2% increase, right, on fees, how does that translate in terms of total amount revenue generated
That
compared to
translates,
citations?
just on the rental rates alone, I think overall rental rates comprise, I'm gonna say
That's the-
ballpark.
Rental's the bread and butter of parking division.
And
somewhere
I think they
between-
should be the ones that are paying now
Somewhere
for
between
that stuff.
2.4 and 2.6 million out of the 3.7 million
It's a
appetite.
major
Okay.
part of it, yeah.
So yes.
I mean, you
and-
understand the point I'm making, right?
Absolutely, and you're
Okay.
absolutely correct. What I can tell you anecdotally without quoting numbers is that's exactly what's happening. The rental rate increase of 2% because of what the rental rate already is and the number of patrons who rent from us, that 2% rate has an astronomical effect when compared to that $5 jump because we only issue a certain number of citations.
Would it be possible to have that data available for the council packet?
Sure.
Because again, it's one of those things in my mind, I'm looking at it like, look, if it's time to raise citation rates, I get it. But what I'm looking at and saying, instead of raising citation rates by $5, should we be raising them by $2 and raising, monthly rates by 3%? I don't know, I mean, because I don't have that aggregate data to look at, but that's kind of, I'm just trying to make sure that we're putting that burden on the right users.
Yeah, seems to make sense.
Yeah, we never,
Sometimes it's good.
I know we've got the projections complete because
Yeah, that's
That's how we
actually,
use them to
that's a
come up with this.
sensitivity analysis thing that you can't really just put on one sheet of paper. I'm not saying that we can't provide
Sure.
it, because that's the stuff that I go through between June and August, screwing around with those numbers and seeing what revenues we have to generate versus what expenses we have to cover, and what's the more appropriate increase.
Yeah.
All that stuff all those decisions and thoughts are put into it at the staff level.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of thought goes into that, Chris, and so I don't want, my request to be maybe a reflection of my, cynicism maybe in what you're doing. It's just one of those things where, we sort of have this responsibility, right, to approve things, but if we don't have the background information to understand that, that's all I'm looking for. Okay, so,
Well, I just wanted to comment, Steve and Jim, your department always has great reports, especially Chris, you do a great job. I mean, you
Yes, he
really put it
does.
together nice, and easy to follow, and kudos. I concur with what's been said before, if we could get that data. I see the no parking and no stopping standing will now be tied for the highest throughout the state. So we won't go over, but it'll be tied for the highest, right? 32 and 42. Actually, a little more because of the $2.
Right.
Is there any reason we didn't raise the disabled one? And, if there's anyone on here that I think that irks you the most out of anybody,
Yeah, we
is somebody who
recently-
parks in a disabled
There was
spot.
recently a big jump. We don't issue a lot of disabled parking
Yeah.
citations.
Well, I see
If I'm
Appleton's.
recalling, we issued maybe 40 last year.
Okay. I see
It's
Appleton's
just
300. Would we have any opposition to doing 300? Matching where
Yeah,
a little
it's not
brother to the
gonna
south
make
does?
make a real difference in,
Because, I mean,
Revenue.
overall, that's the super egregious one. I don't know how many times, I see it more now than when I used to, but people parking and handicapped and they come flying out, I'm like, I'm like, hey.
I guess following up on Chris, on Mr. Grillo's comment, we would have no objection to that,
Okay.
especially as a policy statement.
And that's really what I'm looking
Statement.
When we prepare the parking, when we prepare the recommendation on the rate structure, we're simply looking at it from a budgetary standpoint,
Okay.
not necessarily a policy standpoint.
Do you need a motion on that then? Or do you
Well-
want, can you just change it and how do you want?
Well, I guess if you were to ask me, what would I like to see coming out of tonight? In an ideal world, again, presuming that we can get you the data, and I know we can't, for the council pack, and you find agreement with the data we provide you. What I would be looking for would be to approve the 2020 Parking Division rates and fees, and I would actually take these 4 bullet items and include that as part of the motion, except I would also add in here, increase the no parking in the disabled from 150 to 300. If that's a modification. you
That would be
looking-
my motion to,
The others are
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
You're okay with
I'm
the
fine with the
I
other
know,
ones.
I know what
unless-
you want.
I see the reasoning behind it, but pending information we get
information,
next week. I
yeah.
mean,
So can we do it at
unless you want to
council?
hold.
Here's what I'm gonna offer up.
Okay.
I don't think that I would support
Yep.
that large of an increase, and I honestly wish, because it is really more of like a policy type
Yeah.
of thing, I'd almost rather handle that separately.
Alright.
If you want to embed it in here, that's your choice, but I will say that if that's in here, it will prompt me to vote no to this,
The whole thing.
the whole thing.
Because
Yep.
of that one change?
Because of that one change, yes.
Hmm.
I'm not so sure about that one yet.
All right.
I want to think about that one a little bit.
Would a different
Well-
amount change your mind?
It's a very significant punitive piece, and I think when most people make the decision to do that, I suspect they wouldn't anticipate a $300 fine.
Then they shouldn't do it. I mean, that's probably the most.
I don't
egregious
disagree
one,
with
right?
that. I don't disagree with that. But I think there's that, what's appropriate, right? And are we getting any better compliance with a $300 fine than we are with $150? And if not, that's where I would really question that level of jump, because now it just becomes a revenue generator.
Is that,
If the goal is about compliance.
is that the most egregious one you can think of? I mean, to me, that's a
Yeah.
bad one. And I don't know, is there
It
anything
is.
above and beyond that? I think, I can't
Parking
think of
next
any.
door, I guess,
other-
But that's my point, is we're having a punitive
Fire
discussion
rates are the
now,
same as
Right.
most
and not a
understand.
compliance discussion.
I mean, I've taken it upon myself to tell people that are parked in a car, I'll say, hey, move.
I mean, if
Martha
we-
says, why'd you do that?
I would just say if we're gonna have a punitive discussion, I'd almost rather handle that separately.
Well,
But
I'll leave
that's
my
up to
motion
your
stand with the
discretion.
change to 300, and I'll pass that on to
All right.
council, and whatever happens, happens. With the data that you requested.
Sure.
Yeah.
Will we have that in time? We will have that in time for
Yes.
council? Okay.
Is there a second?
This is
go
not
with
a
it.
story.
Second, I'll second that.
This is not a story.
Okay,
It's a
well.
comment. Today, it seems like the only way you get people to comply to certain rules and that is through the pocketbook. And I agree. I think anybody who parks in it, it's noted, unless they didn't, sometimes you will see where it's kind of faint, if they didn't repaint it, but otherwise, I mean, come on, you know that you don't park there.
They don't
So
necessarily,
I believe it.
they don't have the fine listed though, do they, on the signs?
Okay, maybe we should put this, yeah.
Now, that's a whole other,
Yeah, I don't know.
is there anything like that? I can't think of it. That you would have a fine listed on a
On
sign.
a
That's
sign.
expensive. That's an expensive
It does
thing.
get expensive,
Right.
yes.
Yes, it does.
And it changes over time, so you'd have to get new
Right.
signs or change it. So
Yeah, you just make up your own and hang it on there.
We do make our own.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just hang it on underneath
I'll
this.
relax, but yeah.
Chris, could you just make a point in the info that you're generating? Could you also include data regarding the number of citations issued?
Oh, yeah,
Single
I intended to do
All right,
that.
thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Alder Weary,
A second.
a second by Alder Stoyer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Motion carries. Item number, where are we at? 9. Consideration of possible action on the request by the Department of Public Works to execute Amendment X to the Brown County Municipal Recycling Agreement.
I was being extremely sneaky, as opposed to item X, or amendment X, it's actually Roman numeral 10.
Ah,
So, that's how it came across from Brown County. Because it is Amendment 10, I'm hoping that that tells you something. We entered into the master agreement with Brown County. Brown County Port and Resource Recovery Department is the responsible unit for recycling within the county. Each of the member municipalities that are listed on the second page of the document I handed out to you earlier tonight in the handout are member municipalities of that recycling agreement. This simply updates the agreement for the forthcoming year so that we're eligible for the consolidation grant. By becoming member municipalities and entering into this agreement, we then become eligible for the recycling grant monies from the state of Wisconsin. I have been in contact with the Port Resource Recovery Department, and we are looking at coming up with a new master agreement. We currently have at least 2, possibly more. One agreement for solid waste services, one for recycling, and we're looking at putting that all into a master agreement. But because the current agreement doesn't allow us to go for an extended period of time, we simply have to execute these amendments on an annual basis, saying that we are still in with the county. So
That's
staff
time
does recommend
consuming.
approval. It's a really good source of revenue for us to help offset some of the recycling costs.
Is that kind of a painful waste of time to try to do that year after year? You know, like, does it take a lot of time to?
This is simply a procedural item that
Right.
we are very much in support of.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
second.
A motion to approve by Alder Wery, second by Alder Steuer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 10, consideration of possible action regarding report on the citation rates from neighboring communities referred to staff from August 14th, 2019 Improvement Services Committee meeting. Chris, is this you?
I'm sorry, I was talking about Alderman.
Should I tell any more stories?
That's the small font that we were discussing previously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I asked for this, if I recall.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was, I'm trying to recall, I think it was just a discussion to see if we were kind of in the right neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's what that was, it's the super, the two-pitch font, that's the result of a survey I talked to I just didn't just go online, I talked to every single community on the list to get their numbers for comparison.
Okay. But I mean, it looks like the deviation really from the norm isn't that substantial in most cases. I mean, it seems to be in line. And I think really the source of this, if I recall again, was related to the increase in the fee.
Right.
And just making
Right.
sure that we're not,
Right, it was a follow-up on that.
yeah, out of line kind of thing. And okay. I'm comfortable with this. Unless there's questions, I would entertain a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Alder Wery, second by Alder Steuer. Chris, thank you for the report, though. I don't want you to feel like this was time wasted, because I am going to hold on to this, and it's good info. All
And we
right.
always have more information that I didn't bring tonight.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Consideration of possible action on request by Tycor Built LLC to dedicate to the City of Green Bay the infrastructure improvements in Pine Acres subdivision.
We periodically come before the committee with a request to enter into a developer's agreement for subdivision development. One of the conditions of those developers' agreement is once the infrastructure has been completed to a point of substantial completion, the developer then has the ability to come and dedicate that infrastructure and public right-of-way to the for public use. So in the case of this particular subdivision, Pine Acres, developer has reached substantial completion and is requesting to dedicate those improvements to the public. Staff recommends that you accept the dedication.
Where's that located?
On the southwest side of town, kind of off of
In the
Campbell Road.
Pine Acres subdivision.
Oh, thank
Jeez,
you.
Come on, Mark.
I want more.
Last time we asked you to sit in.
This one is.
This one I'm going
All right, entertain a motion to approve.
Sure.
We have
Yes.
a motion by
Second.
Alder Steuer, second by Alder Wery. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 12, consideration with possible action request by Holker Brothers Incorporated to enter into an annual hold harmless agreement for access to the City of Green Bay sewer system to conduct inspection of the sewer mains and laterals.
We currently have a similar agreement with KS Energies, who is doing work ahead of Wisconsin Public Service Corporation. What this started off with primarily when WPS is upgrading gas services, or distribution lines, especially within the residential subdivisions. Oftentimes they directionally bore that in the terrace, and the danger is the depth they work at is roughly the same elevation as laterals. So in order to make sure they don't hit the laterals, what they've requested is the ability from the city to enter into our sanitary sewer with a camera. So it's the same type of closed-circuit television camera that we use for inspection, except it has a deployable probe that can go up the lateral. They videotape and mark the location of the lateral so that when you're on the surface, you can find that lateral. But then they deploy the probe, and then using a MagTech, they're able to locate the lateral X, Y, and Z. You can actually get a depth measurement because of the probe inside of the pipe. And they mark that on the terrace, the spot on the grass, and then they vacuum excavate down to physically see the pipe and get a true depth. And by doing that, they're able to set the depth, tell Wisconsin Public Service, your gas main has to be 2.7 feet below the surface so you don't hit anything. Right now, they only do it on sanitary sewers, not storm sewers, because the danger of a cross bore in a storm sewer is less than the danger presented by a sanitary sewer. Sanitary is more of a closed system, whereas a storm sewer, God forbid, they cross bore a storm sewer pipe. There's a check valve at the house, and the manholes and the inlets are open graded, so you would smell gas in the roadway, which would cause somebody to call WPS and say, hey, there's a gas leak somewhere. Whereas a sanitary sewer, you're not going to get that. It will mix in with the sewer gas real quick, and it could be the pressure would be enough to simply blow the trap out into a home. So it has been a very successful program for us. One of the, we required that KS Energies provide a demonstration of competency. They have to hire qualified individuals. They can't damage our pipe. They have to have bonding and insurance on file. Okay, that's all great for them. What's in it for us? Number one, our residents don't get their laterals hit. Number two, even though they don't record, they do take observations during the time that they're inside of our pipe. And if they notice obvious problems, blockages, defects, anything like that, they notify us immediately. So it's providing another set of eyes and ears with eyes inside the pipe to find potential problems that could cause backups in the future. Because that program, it falls under a subset of municipal engineering that's referred to as SUE, or subsurface utilities engineering. And with more and more utilities wanting to be resident within the right of way, that's getting clustered and looking like spaghetti. So we have more utilities wanting to be underground. They are hiring more subcontractors to do the same thing KS has been doing for us successfully for the last 7 years. Long story to get to where we are. Holcher Brothers is the next person in line who they want to be the next KS. So we have vetted them out. We have found them to be competent in what they're doing. They will be providing a similar level of effort for other utilities to do this work. So we do recommend approval of this. But we want to give you a little history of why they're asking for it and what benefit to the city.
Could you repeat that?
I could, but I think you've been here long enough.
Right, not amused.
Steve, you indicated that, they report back to you when there is a problem.
Yes.
How often has that happened with the previous contractor?
It happens enough. Sometimes they'll simply, we'll get a short form report from them. More often than not, they give us, we found nothing, no problems, everything is good, which is good information to have as well. But we may get something back saying, encountered debris at 257.7 feet from upstream manhole or downstream manhole. That gives us, okay, let's go find out what happened. So we go in there with our televising crews and we check the situation out, and we find out, oh, it's a high-end manhole, there's not a lot of flow there. We need to put this one on we have a flushing list. Sometimes we've got structures that are low flow, there's just not a whole lot in the main, and you have to size we use a minimum 8-inch sanitary main. That's just the smallest size we use so we can get cameras and cleaning equipment and so on in there. But the flow really would only support a 4-inch pipe. So sometimes you get debris accumulation. And these guys will go in there and, hey, we saw debris. Okay, so we go out there and check it out. Oh yeah, it's a low flow pipe. Once every 6 months, we'll go out there and run 100 gallons of water down to make sure everything got flushed out. So sometimes it's, more often than not, the vast majority of the time, we get confirmation back that everything is good. Periodically, we get reports that there is an issue. More often than not, when we go to investigate the issue, it's garden variety, run-of-the-mill type stuff that we see every day. But there have been a couple of times where they have noticed issues within the pipe that have prompted us to go out and do a further investigation where it has headed off something that could have otherwise been very costly. For instance, they will note that what we refer to as quarter cracking, okay? 12, 6, 3, and 9. The quarter points of the pipe. On old clay pipe especially, that's the weak points, and that's where the pipe starts to crack and then the pipe starts to squish. They'll let us know heavy quarter cracking, root infiltration, so on and so forth. We'll go out there and take a peek at that, and okay, let's put that one on the lining contract for next year. We may not have known that because that was in a basin we're not going to televise for the next 2 years. So by the time we got around to our routine televising, where that one's order came up, we may have already had a failure which would have resulted in a sanitary sewer backup. But simply because these guys were out there doing a project for Wisconsin Public Service, they noted it, we were able to get out there and get the situation resolved before it became a problem. So it does happen.
Okay.
Do they report out, you just said they report to you, is it a weekly, bi-weekly, or does it just depend on the situation?
It's when they're out there. Typically, within a week of them completing their work, they're turning over whatever they found to us, good, bad, or otherwise.
But I'm just wondering if there was, just to keep consistent, would you find it, even if they reported you to say, hey, everything's good this week? I mean,
It wouldn't do any
care?
good because they may go 4 weeks without doing any
All right, I thought there
televising.
might be some consistency.
No, it's
all right.
it's whenever Wisconsin Public Service has a
Okay.
project,
That's
then
fine.
they're out there.
That's fine. Okay, thanks.
I
That's all I
entertain a
got.
motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
A motion by Alder Steuer, second by Alder Weary. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 13, consideration of possible action on applications for concrete sidewalk builders licenses by the following: A, McDonald Services LLC, B, N&L Concrete Construction LLP, and C, Tri-North Builders Incorporated.
All good? All good, recommend approval.
Move to approve?
Second.
A motion by Alder Weary, second by Alder Steuer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 14, consideration of possible action on application for a tree and brush trimmer license by a Four Season Tree Care.
Good and recommend approval.
Move to approve?
Second.
A motion by Alder Weary, second by Alder Steuer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 15, consideration of possible action on application for underground sprinkler system license by,
IXL.
is this IXL now,
Yes.
or is this 9L? Sprinkler systems.
It's,
Actually, this,
41.
no, that would be 41, yeah.
Very good.
although,
41, I think.
Yep.
although I think that's wrong too, but
Yeah,
it is.
All right.
It's wrong,
By IXL sprinkler systems.
but again, good and recommend approval.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion by Alder Weary, second by Alder Steuer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The informational director's report on recent activities of the Public Works Department.
Only 2 things I wish to report to you tonight. We did have a situation on Main Street not last week, 2 weeks ago. It'll be two weeks ago tomorrow. With the high groundwater and river elevations that we've been experiencing because of the flooding events, obviously river elevations today, everything is up right now. And we have some old infrastructure that crosses rivers. As a result, the rivers do have some impact, some influence on the trenches. 24-inch sanitary sewer on Main Street in front of the Riverside Ballroom. Dates back to 1933. It was an old Green Bay Metropolitan Sewage District line. Due to hydrostatic pressure, last Thursday it collapsed. Our televising contractor, again, we come to you with both a basin televising and then we televise for next year's program. Our basin televising contractor was out doing some televising in the area. Happened to be on Newhall Street, which runs alongside of BB's Tavern off of Main Street and goes up to University. Noticed that there was some surcharging in the Newhall line, so they took it upon themselves to do a little bit of investigation. Came down into Main Street, got in front of the labor union, labor hall, and noticed that there was flow in the manhole. The intersection of Newhall and Main, there was a surcharge manhole there, but down at the next manhole downstream, we had flow, but it looked to be muddy. So they contacted us right away. We went out and investigated. We did have a sanitary sewer released to Baird Creek. Estimated it was limited to about 150 gallons. We were able to get on top of things right away, immediately mobilized our contractor in there. It took us a full week because of ground conditions. I was out there for the last 15 feet of pipe, and to lay 15 feet of 24-inch pipe in normal conditions is usually about 25 minutes worth of work. It was 3.5 hours because of the amount of water that we were dealing with in the trench. So we did, Matt Heckenleibel immediately notified DNR. Everything went exceptionally well. DeKaiser Construction is one of our emergency contractors. Kirk pulled everything that he had off of private work to come out for a week and work with us. Did a fantastic job. So we did have the problem. That's why Main Street was restricted to one lane for a little over a week, but we were able to respond to that, and things went very, very well. That could have been a very catastrophic event because immediately downstream, had Northern Pipe not found that when they did, it's a twin siphon. It's two 10-inch diameter siphons, and as the name suggests, they go under the East River right by East High. That's 700 feet away. And we could have plugged both of those siphons, which would have wiped out, caused backups across almost the entire east side of Green Bay. Definitely the northeast corner. So, bullet dodged, and it was due to teamwork between all the contractors and various tools that we use. And the utilities division, definitely. They don't get noticed a lot. Nobody really sees those guys until something goes wrong. And they literally work 24/7 for a week. We had to sit around the clock and babysit 8-inch pumps and make sure that bypass pumping was completed and everything else. The guys did a fantastic job. So just want to recognize them.
Kudos team.
Yeah, kudos.
And then Chris and I were having a discussion shortly before we walked in the door, and it was part look out the window to see the color of the trees, part look at the calendar, and part do a voodoo dance. October 14th, we will put a press release out and get it on social media, but October 14th we'll begin loose leaf collection.
Now we just have to tell the trees to give up their leaves.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the voodoo dance comes in.
Can we?
Yes.
I'm saying.
And that concludes my report.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Alder Story to receive and place on file, second by Alder Weary. Any discussion? Steve, just one thing that I would mention before we take the vote on that. This is a lot of great information that's been shared with us today.
Yep.
I think for us to be effective committee members with the amount of information that's here, I think we could do a lot better if we had this in advance.
I agree. We were literally
I will-
still pulling things together
All
at
right.
the last minute.
I mean, I'll thoroughly give this the attention it needs before council, but I think then what happens is we're forcing council to be the committee. So if we could get these in advance, if you guys could make a little extra effort on it, that'd be much appreciated.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next committee, October 9th, 2019.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alder Story to adjourn, second by Alder Weary. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.